So for you to say a thing is a living thing, it must move, reproduce, be able to carry out nutrition, irritability response to stimulus, growth, excretion, respiration, and death. This is Mr. Niger D. Yeah, all right. We have a very interesting topic in biology today to talk about, and that is the characteristics of living things. Characteristics of living things. There are different ways of getting the talking about the characteristics of living things. You know, how do we know that something is living thing? And according to biology, these 8 characteristics are what tells you that this thing has life in it, and we can categorize it as a living thing. There's one particular stuff that if it's found in a certain environment, it becomes a living thing. When it's found in another certain environment, it is called a non-living thing. What is that stuff? What is that organism? Should I call it an organism? What's that microorganism? What's that object? What is that thing in biology that is in between living and non-living thing? Because when it's found in certain environment, it's a living thing. When it finds another environment, it's not a living thing. Leave the answer in the comment section. But when you see anything that has all these characteristics we're going to discuss about, we call them living thing. And there's an abbreviation that helps us. Who can remember it? Okay, we call it Mr. Niger D. Mr. Niger D. All right, so we're going to be taking them one after the other. Any living thing should have M. M means movement. If an organism or anything, an object is to be categorized as a living thing, then it should be able to move about. Not just being able to move about, because in plants you can move from one place to the other, but in animal there are different type of movements you see in them. You have the phototropic movement, that is response to movement in response to light. You have thigmotropic movement, movement in response to touch. You have geotropic movement, movement in response to geography, to gravity. You know, when you plant when you plant something and you decide to bend it this sideway to still go up, that's a geotropic movement. And you have some plants, like if you touch it, it can close. Like you have those leaf. If you know the name of any of them, you can write it in the comment section. So, but one of the characteristics of living thing is the ability to move about. Movement, that's one. Number two is what? Reproduction. For you to say something is a living thing, it should be able to regenerate itself. You should be able to give birth to younger ones. You should be able to reproduce. And we have different type of reproduction. Like, you know, we have the sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. And under asexual reproduction, which is more common with most plants, you have the grafting, you have the layering, you have the budding, you have different type of asexual reproduction. Also, you have cell division in unicellular organism. But definitely for an organism to be a living thing, it must exhibit reproduction. That's ability to give birth to young ones, to procreate, to continue existing, right? And then you have N, which is very important and it's an area of interest to us. And N is what? Nutrition. You see, any living thing must be able to feed, to get nourished, so that they can grow. All right, I'm already jumping, but nutrition is one of the characteristics of living thing, right? Nutrition, that's feeding, you know, and there are different way of feeding, you know. So, but that is nutrition, and I would like to use this opportunity to talk about nutrition in human being, where you talk about exclusive breastfeeding and other complementary feeding, a topic that I'm going to elaborately talk about in time because it's very, very important. All right, so after nutrition, we have I. I is for irritability. Irritability is also called response to stimulus. What is stimulus? Stimulus is an external factor that comes to stimulate a living organism. For example, if I pinch you, you respond to it. That is stimulus. For example, if a plant, when you cut a plant, it has a response to stimulus, just that their own response to stimulus is slower. For example, if you cut a branch of a plant, it may still remain fresh for a certain period of time before it starts to dry. All right. So that's irritability. Then you have growth. For an object or a thing to be called living thing, it must grow. That means if it's small today, it become bigger, it's growing. And nutrition contribute to growth, right? Okay. So that is very, very important, right? Okay. Then we have excretion. Excretion is simply the removal of waste product from the system, because as you get nourished, as you eat, as you take in certain things, you need to bring out certain things. And in plants, you have excretion. In animal, you have excretion. That's removal of metabolic waste from the system. It happens every living organism, even in unicellular organisms. There's excretion uh, occurring right there. Then you have respiration. This is very important because especially in animal, once they choke you now, they close your nose and you cannot take in oxygen and take out carbon dioxide. In the next, if they just do that for you, in a few minutes, the person can change from being a living thing to a non-living thing. But one of the key characteristics of living thing is ability to respirate. That's intake of oxygen and exchange of carbon dioxide for metabolism in the system, right? That's respiration. But we found out that plant takes in carbon dioxide and gives oxygen, and animal takes in oxygen and gives out carbon dioxide, right? But in all form, this respiration is a characteristic of living thing. And finally, for a living thing to still be a living thing, there's the ultimate death. So that thing should be able to die, right? When it died and ceased to possess all these other seven characteristics, it is a living thing. So for you to say a thing is a living thing, it must move, reproduce, be able to carry out nutrition, irritability response to stimulus, growth, excretion, respiration, and death. This is Mr. Niger D as the characteristic of living thing. I hope this class has been interesting and you've learned one or two things. Don't forget the question I asked at the beginning. There's an object, there's a thing that is in between living thing and non-living thing. Depending on the environment you find it in certain environment, it behaves as living thing. When it's outside of that environment, it behaves as non-living thing. What is the name of that unicellular object or organism? Leave it in the comment section. All right, thank you very much. Don't forget to share this with all the students that may need to refresh their memory or learn newly all these things that we'll talk about. In other classes, or when you check other of my videos, I'm going to be elaborating on some of these characteristics in full details. So make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you like, make sure you turn on the notification bell if you're watching this on YouTube. Make sure you follow me on the Facebook page. Make sure you follow me if you're on TikTok. Make sure you follow me on the Instagram page. And make sure to let all the students know that they need to follow this channel, because definitely it's going to be a blessing to them and it's going to help their academic performance in the long run. My name is Isaac Dare, and I say thank you very much for watching. God bless you. Bye.